Welcome to Lift Your Leg. This is Monique Anstee from the Naughty Dogge in Victoria, BC, and author of As a Dog Thinketh.
And Jill Brown from Calgary, Alberta, the bag lady.
And we have with us our guest,
Hayley from Nanaimo with the chewed slipper.
Today we are discussing what dogs need, and we are starting off with Hayley.
I wanted to talk about the freedom that dogs need physically. I think it's people aren't training as much for freedom as they do with everything else. I feel like dogs are being trained to walk nicely on a leash, walk in Canadian Tire, go on their place, but they're not fighting for freedom for their dogs. And I think it's so much more important than people realize.
We get these dogs. We want these creatures that we see playing with other dogs. We love them because they're free. And ultimately, when all we're doing is walking them around the neighborhood for 3 times a day for 20 minutes each, it's the same as just having a bird in a cage. Like, they never actually get to be dogs.
Yeah, the majority of the training being done is control-based.
Yes.
And granted, freedom, you have to have some control as well, but you're not nitpicking all of the little things.
Yeah, I'm not saying that freedom, like off-leash freedom, is going to cure your dog of everything, but I think it's going to give them a whole lot more purpose in life and a calmer mind. Like, I run a boarding kennel, and it's mostly for dogs with issues, and I rarely put leashes on. I do if I really have a dog that can't be off-leash, but generally they're off-leash running, and I don't put any strict rules. My 2 rules are don't be dicks with dogs and come back when called. And I think I don't see the issues that their owners see because they get so much freedom.
Harry has just joined us here. If you can all hear him breathing into the
Hi,
microphone.
Harry.
Way to wreck it, Harry.
I think one of the things that goes with that freedom physically is not micromanaging your dogs.
Oh, yes.
From a mental standpoint. Don't be on them for everything they do. If they pick up something on a walk, everything they pick up doesn't have to be snatched out of their mouth or called back from something they're investigating.
Don't call them back every time they leave you 30 feet so you can work on your recall. Otherwise, why would they bother leaving you?
Many moons ago, I trained with someone who made the client shove gum in their mouth.
Was it me?
Yes. A wad of gum in this poor lady's mouth. And it lightened the mood because this lady was chewing on this giant ball of gum. And 2, she couldn't micromanage her dog. And it was like the most relaxing hike I think that dog has ever experienced. And it's always stuck with me. I always think I should just shove gum in that person's mouth.
That's a super idea.
I think attached to micromanaging too, get out of their heads. Even if you're not micromanaging, so many people the dog's never used to freedom, so it keeps checking back in, and then they're saying spin, twist, bark, spin, and go ahead, go play, and the dog goes 3 steps ahead, looks back at them, then it's spin. Leave them alone, get out of their heads, let them go be dogs. They need that time away from us, managing their every thought and moment.
They can't think then. They're always just waiting for you to have their thoughts.
Exactly.
And I see it a lot with dogs I board. They don't know how to go and be a dog. They're just at my side looking at me, wondering what next. And I think, just go. Go have fun.
Any novel situation. And that can just be going to a new area to walk.
Yeah.
The dogs don't know what to do if they're not getting some kind of instruction from you.
Yeah. It's sad, I think, because they don't know how to think and just go and be. Go be.
Yeah.
I hike my dogs for an hour, not every morning, but several times a week. They go for an hour. And during that time, I barely check in with them. They're off being dogs. I'll call them back if I need them, but I'm going places where they can have the freedom that they need to have. If someone's about to do something inappropriate with wildlife, I'll call them back. Other than that, they get to be dogs. If they check in with me, I tell them to go away again. Hi, piss off now. Send them off back. I'm not wanting them to come and be like little robotic creatures. I ask enough from Harry in his work that this is his hour to just completely remove me from his head.
Yeah, sad.
That also teaches them that when you do call them back, you mean it.
Yes.
If you're not calling them back every 5 minutes to check in, when you do have to raise your voice and call them back, they know there's a reason for it.
Yes.
And that's the same with any of my commands for them. Once they're trained, obviously, if I say down, they know there's a reason. And because I'm not always nagging at them, they're going to do it. It's not just another training exercise where they get a cookie. Not them saying I don't do those training exercises, but if I'm on a walk, they know business if I am actually saying something to them.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you're constantly recalling and constantly telling them down, eventually you're going to become white noise to them. Like, they're not even going to hear you anymore. And then when you really need them to listen, suddenly you're just a nagging voice in the background they've learned to ignore.
Yes.
Appreciation of who you have as a dog, appreciation and understanding, whether it's a super strong dog or a less than super strong dog. Once you understand what you have and you appreciate them for who they are, your relationship changes tenfold when you're no longer fighting with them to try to create something that they aren't.
I think a lot of people get a dog and it's I can speak of this. My pit bull Millie was my soul dog. She was everything I needed. And I find myself comparing her to many other dogs. And once I can get out of that mind of I got to stop comparing and I can appreciate the dog that I have who is not Millie, you're right. It just makes you understand and appreciate them so much more. You just have to stop having expectations that they're not going to meet and just appreciate for what the expectations they can meet are.
Yep.
That's always been a fear of mine with my working dogs. If my last dog was like a male shepherd, I've always struggled my next dog being a male shepherd. Thus, Harry is a male Malinois. After Pippa, I didn't get another border collie. It's so hard. The next border collie that does arrive after Pippa has big boots to fill. So it will probably be a boy, because then I can't compare it to her as a girl. So for me, I always find it easier not to have the same breed, same sex coming in again. But obviously Jill's gotten past that because hers are all golden retriever girls.
They are, yes. One thing that I would suggest or recommend to people is if you have one of those super special dogs and you know you're going to get another one in the future, I would get that second one before you lose the first one. Because you have less of a chance of comparing when you still have them both.
When you're not mourning one.
And on the two of the last 3 dogs that I lost, I almost didn't get anymore.
Really?
Because I thought there's no way, can't do this again, and I'm not going to get what I want again anyway.
That's how I feel. I don't know if I'll ever do another pit bull.
Yeah.
As much as I look at them and I just love them, but none of them are as perfect as Millie.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if any of them will be.
Yep.
Going back to this, the appreciation, understanding of who they are. Johnny's I want to say he's just easy. I know what's in there, but I don't have to worry about him. He's easy in some ways and harder in others. But he's stable. He just hangs out. He's reliable. That's the right word for it. Whereas Harry is wild and free in life. Like Harry running through the forest. He's going at a full gallop, leaping over logs, branches. Then there was one time I turned a bend and he hadn't realized there was a bend there. And I had just gone down a tree root, so I'd stepped down. He was coming with such speed around the corner, he jumped over my head. Granted, I'm not 6'4", but it still was a big jump even for Harry. Or the one dog in day school yesterday, he was having so much fun galloping through the forest, same thing. He ran around a bend and boofed it right into me, knocked me flat. But appreciate them for who they are. For the one dog yesterday, he so needed that energy spurt, that moment of freedom, like he just let loose and had some joy, because it had been a very serious walk for all the dogs. There was something in the forest that we didn't know. So they were all being very serious, very controlled. Then this one dog had a moment of absolute freedom and joy. Appreciate them for who they are. He needed to be that way.
There's a pit bull that boards with me, and it has some dog issues, but the owner has embraced everything that this dog is and doesn't focus on what the dog isn't. So she does weight pull. She was never into any of these sports prior to my understanding, but she does weight pull and wall climb and barn hunt, and she's just out there.
Swell!
It's swell! And she's just out there doing all these things with this dog, and her dog is thriving. And I can hike that dog she's on leash, but she can go out and she controls herself, and you can see little Swell's mind really working hard to control herself around the dogs. So she gets the afternoons of none of that, and she gets full freedom. But I love talking to Swell's mom because she doesn't sit there and dwell on what Swell isn't. She always talks about all the great things that Swell does.
Yeah.
It's heartwarming.
Yep.
Yeah. Another piece dog needs is life lessons to make them strong so they can cope with life. And I think that's a big piece so many people are missing nowadays. We try and give them the perfect puppyhood, but the perfect puppyhood does not mean they will have the perfect adulthood, because dogs require stress to get stronger. I'm not saying, maybe I am saying, they need little moments of stress. Lock them in a crate. Get them used to being crate trained. Yes, they'll cry. Oh, let them cry. They'll get over it, and they will be a better person for it at the end of it. My 8-month-old puppy needs to go to a boarding kennel and have an overnight away from home. They need to deal with adversity, same as we need to deal with adversity. It was so stressful buying our first house, getting our first mortgage. So stressful. I'm sure you can all relate to that. But was it ever worth it? It's the things that are difficult for us in life are the most beneficial to us in life also. It's the same for dogs. So don't protect them from life's lessons. They need to learn to deal with life, cope with stresses, deal with adversity. Then they will have the skills to have the perfect adulthood that you're wanting them to have.
The piece with that is that they need to know that they can get over that stress. So don't put them into a stressful situation that you don't know that they can accomplish. It needs to be stressful situations that they can get out of on their own, but they'll come out of it prouder and stronger as a dog.
Yeah. Let them succeed at things that they're really struggling with and let them do it on their own, but be there to tell them how wonderful they are when they get through it, even if it is hard for them.
No, I'm not super great at raising puppies. Puppies always stress me out a little bit. I feel like they're little balls of molding clay, and I worry about it all the time. I've luckily never had to raise puppies on my own. I've just always gotten people's rescue dogs that I have to fix, but they're usually past the puppy stage. But I would say you're still putting them in situations that you are carefully constructing so that you know they're going to succeed. You're not just going to dog parks where you know there's going to be stress and hoping they'll get out of it stress-free or accomplishing it. But it needs to be structured things that you're putting in their life.
I'm thinking more along stuff if they go into the bedroom and they get themselves between the wall and the bed and they can't figure out how to...
Don't just move the dresser for them.
Exactly. They'll figure out to back out, and when they do, they've just learned something.
Yeah, stress is not a bad thing, and I feel like there's so many people out there who want to avoid stress with their dogs, and I think it's so detrimental to dogs.
It's going to come eventually,
yes.
Regardless of how protective you are. If you don't allow them to see it as a young dog, when it happens as an older dog, it's going to be much worse.
Explosive.
They will be an anxious mess at that point in time and have absolutely no idea how to deal with it, and almost just be comatose, having absolutely no idea what to do. They won't know. They're just going to stand there frozen or panic.
Yeah.
So you need to help them with this. Otherwise, you're going to have a dog that's riddled with anxiety. But Hayley is totally right. It has to be little life lessons that you know they can accomplish. So I'm not going to go away for 3 weeks to Hawaii and leave my dog in the boarding kennel for that entire time. That's not training. That's overwhelming them. First, they get an overnight. Then they'll probably get 2 nights. Then I go on my 3-week vacation. Bye-bye, dog. Have fun.
Yeah.
Break it down. So it's small little life lessons.
I remember watching you raise Pippa. I was fascinated by it because you had to create little... because she was a little bit more of a timid puppy, and you had to create these little moments where she would get brave doing these moments, but you were careful in what you created for her.
Yes. I got to choose them, create them.
Yeah.
And she needed them so badly.
Yeah, she did. Speaking of herding breeds, I think it's so important to genetically fulfill your dog. If you're going to be getting certain breeds for certain reasons, you need to know what drives them genetically. I think people are so quick to get a German Shepherd because they want a dog who's highly trainable, but they forget all of the nuances behind that of they're going to be wary of strangers and be ready for that. And don't expect to just crush them for it. They need genetic fulfillment. So if you're going to get a Border Collie, expect that they're going to be herding. So put them into something that is going to do that. I don't think you all need to go get sheep, although your Border Collie would thank you if you did.
Yes.
But like even things like agility, or I think going out hiking genetically fulfills a lot of dogs. For the dogs who just need to run and stretch their legs, it does that. For the dogs who want to hunt the squirrels and the bunnies, it does that. For the ones who want to dig, I think hiking dogs is such an important thing because it genetically fulfills many needs.
Yep. The retrievers can bring you back the dead squirrel that they found buried that's been there for a year.
Don't get your Malinois and think that your 3 diligent half-hour walks around the neighborhood are going to be enough for it on leash in hill position
No.
beside the stroller. Your Malinois needs way more than that. So yes, you can teach him to do that, but is his life fulfilled? Is he the happiest Malinois we're going to see?
No. And I know it's tough. Like I used to live in a condo when I had Millie, and it certainly is more difficult because it's not like you can just go into your backyard and have a good time with them. But then you have to be aware that if you're living in a condo, maybe there are certain breeds you shouldn't be getting. I'm going to get my ear chewed off for that. But I think there are people living in condos succeeding with difficult breeds. But I think
it takes a big compromise in your lifestyle. You have to change your life to then be able to meet that dog's needs.
And I think it's okay that if you really want a difficult dog to wait until you have the property for it, because I do think that matters. Get the pug. I promise pugs are wonderful. I hike a little pug and she can keep up with the best of them. They're not just lazy.
Yeah. No, they're cool.
So it's not about just getting the difficult dogs. I think most of the easier, quote unquote, easier breeds will fulfill your life more than you think they will. But I do think it matters kind of what property you have, your house. I do think that matters as much as people want to say it doesn't. What my little border collie Annie, when I was living in a house with a small backyard, she was doing okay. We'd do our walks, we'd go hiking. She was doing good. And then I moved onto a farm, and Annie rarely sees public now, and she is the happiest dog I've ever seen. And I can take her into public if I want. I can make her do that, but it's not what she thrives in. She goes hiking every day. She gets to help train all the boarding dogs, and then she just hangs out on the farm, and she is happy and content.
Yeah,
I would be too.
Yes.
I'm going to add to this about genetically fulfilling your dog. If you're getting a breed like a Malinois from working lines, a German Shepherd from working lines, which means that they've actively been doing protection work, don't get that dog for search and rescue and then wonder why it's biting the people when it finds them. And no word of a lie, I was a witness to one Malinois getting euthanized for this. Like, it's absolutely heartbreaking. So they got him for working lines, and they're surprised that he bit the people when he found them in search and rescue, and he got euthanized. Like, this is such a terrible failure to the breeds that we're getting. Yeah. So be careful, be sensible, and be smart. Don't think you're a good enough trainer that you can train through it, because yes, you might be able to, but what if you can't? What then happens to that dog if you can't?
And you might be able to, but at the expense of the soul of the dog too sometimes. And I don't think that's fair. Yeah. You used to say to people who got dogs, like puppies in puppy class, to call around to the different breed-specific rescues and ask them why the dogs are being given up. And I thought that was always so important, because we always want to focus, even if you're reading like a breed book, they always talk about the great things of the breed. And you have to read between the lines to find out what are the other behaviors that I may not want in my life. And I thought calling the breed rescues is a great way to find out why are these breeds specifically being given up.
And if you are reading a breed description, it's learning to read in between the lines. Loves his family. Translation, will not love your guests.
Aloof of dogs, probably dog aggressive.
What other ones are in our breed books?
Golden Retrievers.
No, like temperaments.
What do they say about the Goldens in there?
What do they say?
They like to have something in their mouth.
There you go.
Translation, you'll never be able to find your shoes when you're in a hurry.
Yeah.
So as much as there's this breed fulfillment, you have to expect, like when I was training and people would call and say, oh, my husky just always escapes and always pulls me. Like, welcome to huskies. Or my German Shepherd doesn't like people coming to my door. Yeah, welcome to German Shepherds. Yeah. And while I could go in there and say, yeah, we'll fix all of this, I think a lot of it was to the expense of the dog, and I didn't like doing that. Yeah. Like it didn't feel right. If I have people coming to my house, my dogs go away. I don't force them to go lay on a bed and suck it up, because I think that's unfair. Yeah. I don't think they should just have to suck it up when everything genetically in them is screaming, this isn't what we do. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to change it to a little bit more fun now.
Sorry.
No, it's good. What dogs need to fulfill their lives, and you might all laugh at me for this one, but they need dumbassery. Like, how many of you are dumbasses with your dogs? And by that, Sheila and I were training. Jill was there, so was David. And Sheila and I climbed on the bars, and we were rolling upside down. We were rolling along on the floor. We were doing I don't even know what these moves are called anymore. It's been a while.
Planking. You were planking.
We did planking. What about the bike, though?
Oh, Yeah.
When you throw your legs up in the air and you're
You're on
like
your back.
riding a bicycle.
On your back?
Yeah. Just stupid stuff like that. So I went from my legs being in the air and then I grabbed Sheila's dog with my legs and yeah, be stupid. All those stupid moves, your dog needs to see them. It makes them stronger, makes them braver, and it makes them realize you're a bit of an idiot, so they should keep their eyes on you because they never know quite what you're going to do next.
Keeps them on their toes, and it also creates a sense of humor in them.
It does.
Yes.
All of my dogs have a big sense of humor. I'll do things like take off running around the kitchen table. If Harry's in the kitchen, I'll twist a dish rag and flick him in the ass with it and then back up before he bites me. Be stupid with them. Have fun with them.
I go to the dollar store and buy all sorts of different stupid toys. I have this long plastic horn. And at first, all the dogs are terrified of it. Chloe and Annie now know just to disarm me. And they take it from me and off they go running with it. But I think
It was Harry's head.
that dumbassery is so important, as Harry is showing us his sense of humor over here right now. And I think it's important to be mindful of the battles you're picking. Just let the small stuff go. Let them have their dumbassery moments that you think, oh, what are they doing? Sometimes you just have to let it go. Turn a blind eye. I have so many clients who drop their dogs off for boarding and they start eating chicken poo. And the clients are like, no, don't eat that. And I stand there thinking, as soon as you're gone, I promise they're going to eat the chicken poo. And I'm okay with it. I want them to be dogs. And sometimes you just need to turn a blind eye. So long as it's not going to hurt them.
Yeah.
We're not looking for injuries or anything like that. But let them be a dog. I think this goes right along with don't micromanage them. Let them be dumbasses sometimes.
Yeah.
The number of clients I have that will help their dogs over a log, like a 1 foot high log. And there they are, like, up here, and then they're scooting its bum over. Really? Just walk. I can assure you your dog can find his way over a 1 foot high log. So we're just so used to solving all of their problems and not letting them think or be dogs.
Yeah, so pick the battles that you want to actually get on your dog about. Don't bite people. I'll never just turn a blind eye to that. But I might turn a blind eye to the snarl that Annie might give someone as we walk by because she has opinions about certain people. So long as it's safe, it doesn't matter to me.
We should say by snarl, she literally means the dog's walking along and just lifts her lip. Nothing else is showing. It's just, you can see the bottom white of a canine tooth.
Annie just has strong opinions and she's telling other dogs to just leave her alone.
That they're stupid.
That they're stupid.
One of my pet peeves in all of this is that we get these wonderful, proud breeds, and then we do everything we can to change the essence of the dog. So it would be like me getting Harry and then trying to make him like my service dog, or me getting Rupert and trying to make him my next top winning agility dog. Like, Rupert, you could win agility, darling. Don't ever believe anyone that says you can't. But Rupert won't be the fastest.
No.
And Harry won't be the steadiest. And maybe I can train Harry to be the steadiest, but at what cost to Harry? I'd be taking the essence out of Harry of what makes him who Harry is.
I think this is the issue. This is going to divulge into a sadder place, but I think this is the issue with a lot of the dog training I'm seeing now. It's all cookie cutter dog training. We do this and we get this result. And I've always looked at dogs and thought it's not that easy. I'm not going to just teach them to walk nicely, put them on place, make them kennel trained, and have a nice dog, because I don't think it's a service to some of these breeds.
Yeah.
I can't imagine training Jimmy like that now. Like, it would be a disaster. I could do it. I could make him that way, but I think it would be unfair to him. I think it would be really unfair to him.
They all have different needs and we have to meet them.
Yep.
Yes.
Definitely.
As we're saying this, though, dogs do need rules. So we're not all saying just let them be free, crazy spirits. Harry doesn't always just get to be a dumbass and be a heathen outside. So my rules are, do not drag me on a leash. I don't care if you're in front of me, you're behind me, you switch sides from left to right, just don't rip my shoulder off. I want to dip in my leash. It cannot be taught. As in tight.
Like, it can be taught, actually.
Jill raised her eyebrow at me. I realized that one there. Next one is down or sit no matter what. If I'm out someone's about to chase a rabbit, I should be able to yell down and they're going down. I don't have many rules, but the ones that I have high expectations for, these aren't negotiables, these are absolutes.
Yeah. Come when you're called.
Coming when you're called, that's the next one. It doesn't mean you can continue licking that bit of girl pee, Harry, and then slowly tootle my direction. Get your ass over here now.
Mhm.
And the last one is one of the biggest ones, handling. So this is your veterinary examinations. It's toenails, which is where I start teaching it right as babies. It's grooming. It's teaching them restraints for the vet's office. Is being able to pick them up and plonk them down on their side for x-rays. Teach your dog to be handled. And with toenails, I am teaching this with cookies. Grooming, maybe. But the cookies are fast gone, and it's just, you will do this, is going to be okay. And when you stop struggling, everything will be fine. Because the truth is, some of this stuff, they're never going to like it. A dog that has a little bit of nerve in their temperament and unsureness will never be good with toenails. Pippa is the worst dog in my house for toenails. Perfect Pippa.
Worse than Rupert?
Rupert's perfect.
Oh.
Don't look at the length of his nails. Pippa is worse than Rupert by
Wow.
far. And it's her temperament. Not saying she's not perfect, because she is.
Mhm.
But that worried little dog that was in there as a puppy, it still shows when I cut her toenails.
Interesting.
Harry, Mr. Stable Harry, he's whatever, you made my foot bleed. Can we go do something else now? He doesn't care. Mo Chihuahua, totally stable for toenails. She just wants to eat everyone else's clippings when we're done.
Yeah.
So your toenails are going to depend on temperament.
Hold on, this is interesting because Annie, who I would say has not the best temperament,
She's stable.
She is so
Really?
easy for nails. She lays there. I can hit her quick, and I won't even realize until the end, and she has not even flinched. She's
Wow.
like, this is fine. She is my easiest by far for nails.
So maybe Annie isn't temperament. Maybe Annie was created.
Could be. I think once Annie understands a certain thing and she understands that there's not going to be any shock value to it, she's good. There's no surprises around the corner. The boogeyman's not coming out. She can handle it. Chloe's by far my worst. And she's not terrible. She just acts like she's dying.
I think the best thing is happening. I bring out the nail trimmers and she starts elevating. She's so excited to have her nails done.
Have you done them since they were a puppy?
Yes.
Her, yes, with the breeder, but I did sizzle from 3 days on, and I bred her.
Yeah.
And
She's
hates
terrible.
them. Hates them.
So certain things, it depends on your dog's temperament. Some dogs will never like toenails. It's still not an option. It doesn't matter how many cookies you feed them. They're still not going to allow it at a certain age and point in time. Just get it done. Certain dogs are never going to want to be picked up on their side and plonked on an x-ray table. It's a fact of life. It's going to happen, and we can't always use food to get them through this. It was my one pit bull. She was about 15 years old, and she fell off the bed and dislocated a hip. But with a dog of that age, we didn't want to put her under anesthetic because they don't always wake up. So she had to have her hip x-rayed without any sedation on an x-ray table. That's just a fact of life for them to be able to get the quality of care that they need as they age. Mandy, my Italian Greyhound, it was similar. We thought she had bone cancer. She was about 15 years old and had extreme pain in her leg. But you're eliminating a lot of other choices if I'm A, using food to try and get her through it, or B, if I'm putting her under sedation at that point. It's just not advised. They have to be able to just suck it up and allow it to happen. So she just got picked up and held. X-rays were done. It wasn't bone cancer. Then we move on to other choices. But this will be a fact of life for your dogs. And this is probably the most important thing I can share with you now. Like, handling just needs to be. There aren't rewards. They just need to allow it.
Like me, it's similar with people. It doesn't matter how much chocolate or wine you give me. Having to go in and get a pap done is never going to be enjoyable.
Thanks for sharing that with everyone, Hayley.
Hey, all the women out there will agree with me. Wine and chocolates won't fix it. And I think dogs are similar. Just bribing them with food isn't going to make that experience better. They're still going to hate it. So sometimes you just have to teach your dog to suck it up. I know it sucks. We'll get over it. The faster you lay here and get it done, the quicker it's over.
Yep.
I think that's a bit of an issue that we have with vets right now, is that they pull out the lick mat and they want to sit there and befriend your dog, and your dog's already stressed going into that vet clinic. And I went in with Annie about 6 months ago, And it was the same thing, lick mat, trying to befriend the vet. And I don't know anyone who knows Annie, but Annie has issues with people. And so going into a vet clinic used to be quite dicey. But I was talking to Monique about this experience, and she said, you've taught her to lay on her side. Why didn't you just do that? And I was like, you're right. So the next vet visit we went and did, I laid Annie on her side, and it was smooth sailing. So I had forgotten that I had trained her to do this and to suck it up, and she did suck it up like a good girl, and we got through our vet visit. We didn't need a lick mat or anything like that.
I totally feel for our veterinarians nowadays, because we're talking here about life lessons that dogs need to make them stronger, and handling is one of them. It's a major one. But I feel such resistance and pullback from people in group classes and private lessons. I can only imagine what veterinarians receive in this same context when the dog's actually in pain with an inflamed ear. So they've come up with very creative ways to get around it. But ultimately, the dog is not learning the life lesson that they need to make them stronger. And while these solutions might get the dog through in that moment for that particular scenario, it isn't going to help them later on in life if they might need surgery and can't have food right beforehand and need to have an x-ray or something equivalent. So I feel for vets. I think they've been very creative in coming up with this solution, but it's only a partial solution, and it's not one that's the best for your dog.
But it's the solution that the vet can come up with, because they can't teach handling to your dog. So that's up to you guys to teach handling to your dog. Yep. So I don't blame them for bringing out the lick mats and all the other things that they've learned to use. But I think it's the role of the owner to not have to make vets come up with all these solutions.
Yeah. I also wonder how many of the dogs that are stressed at the vet clinic are going to use a lick mat.
That's a good question. I don't actually know. I know that Annie wanted nothing to do with it. She looked at the vet like, nice try.
Yeah, trying to poison me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But their life has definitely become difficult, dealing with difficult dogs and difficult clients.
Yes.
That it's much easier for them to take the dogs to the back and do their treatments there.
Yes. If anyone who's in the dog industry knows that as soon as the owner's out of the picture, the dogs become a whole lot easier. Yeah. And like children, yeah. As soon as you remove or parents or owners, the dogs or kids are very different. Yeah. So I know why vets do that. They take them in the back because it's away from owners, and generally you have an easier dog to handle.
Yes.
But for those of us who have taught our dogs handling skills, I think it's more beneficial for these dogs to be held by their owners.
Yep, agreed.
Less stress. Yeah, more beneficial.
It's your job to prove that to your vet, though. You need to go in there and show them that you will take the bitey end, and that you know how to hold your dog, you know how to make them behave. And a vet's time is incredibly valuable. You can't take 5 minutes to get your dog into this position and calm them down and sweet talk them. It needs to be boom, done.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes booking an appointment to go in and just meet your vet with your dog, mm-hmm. so they can see the relationship you have and the control that you have of your dog. And then you likely won't have this issue when it comes to a point where your dog needs some treatment.
And pay for a room to rent one of the little check-in rooms. Yeah. Pay to rent it. Go in there, practice your down restraint, get a vet tech to come in, look at your dog. Almost all the vets that my clients have approached through the years, actually I think all of the vets, I don't think anyone has ever been turned down, has been welcome to come in and practice down restraints, either in the waiting room or in the actual room itself, because they know they have a client for life. If you train your dog to them in their clinic, you're staying. You're going to be one of their most useful clients. Because A, you're not going to waste vet tech time in the future, and B, your dog is actually safe. So they will embrace it if you're willing to put the time in to train your dog.
That's just it. If you're the one that's restraining your dog and you're doing a good job of it, the two techs that are going to be needed to restrain your dog in the back while the vet treats them can now be doing something else.
True. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. Great training.
When you had talked about your 4 rules of life, I wanted to add in crate training, because I think it's highly valuable. You may not crate your dog at home, but your dog is eventually going to need to be in a crate. whether or not they're injured or they're going to the groomer, or suddenly you have to move houses and you need your dog in a crate while you do all the moving and the moving helpers are there. I think crate training is invaluable.
Absolutely.
I think we should move it from a rule for life, but call it a life skill.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a much needed skill for your dog to have. And as we're living with these dogs, we must all look at where we are in our lives right now, but not be naive enough to think that our lives won't change. We're all just a phone call away from a relative in Ontario needing us to get out there to help them for a medical emergency, or a spouse, dare I say it, dying, or a loss of a job, which means you need to move houses to a different neighborhood, a different type of house, like maybe you have to downgrade to an apartment. Our lives change. We must prepare our dogs for any of those life scenarios so that when life does change, they can come with us and fit in and adapt relatively easy, rather than us needing to rehome them,
Yes.
or them being such a burden that no one's going to help us as we adapt.
Yeah.
So think ahead, think to where your life could take you, the worst case scenarios, and make sure you've trained your dog for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crating is a valuable piece in that puzzle.
I think so.
Yep. Most definitely.
All my dogs are crate trained, but my 2 older girls are rarely in a crate. But it's nice knowing that if I need to, they can go. Or when I go away and they go to my friend's house, my friend can crate them and they have 0 issues with it.
Yep.
So it just makes life for them so much easier and more relaxing.
As I'm saying this, I just thought wildfires.
Yeah.
That's a perfect scenario of how your life can instantly change. If there was a wildfire to rip through here, I'm going to have all of my dogs living in crates for weeks until
Yes.
I'm able to get back on my feet and find somewhere to live.
There was all those photos of just gymnasiums, crates full
Yep.
of dogs that were out of homes. And can you imagine if your dog wasn't crate trained in that moment? That's scary.
Oh,
Exactly. We don't hear about those
one.
ones.
No, I guess not. They weren't in that gymnasium in a crate, I can tell you.
Yeah. So train your dog for life scenarios. It's very important, and it will save their lives at some point.
Yes, I agree. Fully agree.
Thank you, everyone. This has been fun.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Thank you.
See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.